Good morning, everybody. We'll give it a minute or so for other folks to join. Welcome to today's webinar, Proven Techniques for Program Leadership. And we'll also have a deep dive into a Go Live Readiness tool and framework that Ray developed. Just give it 30 seconds more. Couple introductory comments. First of all, we're thrilled you're here today. We know your time is very valuable, so thank you for joining us. My name is Jamie Johnson, and I'll be your host today. We're going to ask if you could please use the chat or the Q&A section so that we can collect your questions and try and answer questions as we go along. So feel free to do that. Ray, my colleague, will be monitoring the questions during the presentation part, and then I will monitor during the demonstration part. The session is being recorded today, and we'll send a link afterwards so that you all have benefit of the recording if you cannot stay on the entire time. It's also registered with the Project Management Institute and provides 2 hours of PMP credits. Let's dive in briefly to the webinar itself and some of the subject areas so that you understand the context. In the ever-evolving world of IT technologies, as I'm sure many of you are familiar, since you probably work in IT technologies or projects, the landscape is always changing. We're having to deliver large-scale solutions, and the approaches are always changing, and it does seem like an insurmountable challenge at times because of all the changes. Unlike other industries, IT programs are fraught with complexities, as I'm sure many of you are aware, and uncertainties that often derail even the best laid plans that we put together. But what if you could decode these complexities and steer your programs to success with more confidence? This webinar is really designed to help you, arm you with insights, some proven tools and techniques that you can apply to your programs to improve outcomes. While it won't really guarantee success, these techniques are often overlooked and provide tangible benefits, and they have for me over my career. So today's webinar is going to cover the following areas. We're going to talk about the unraveling IT complexities, understanding unique challenges that make IT programs difficult to manage, and discover strategies to overcome them. We'll go through a comprehensive toolkit, basically an array of tools and techniques designed to improve your program performance. We'll also want to share any innovations you have, and if you could put those in the chat or the Q&A, things that you've uncovered that you find valuable, that you want to add to the group, that would be wonderful. Blind spot identification is another goal. We want this webinar hopefully to help you identify and address blind spots in what I call program assurance. So with your toolkit of program tools, templates, techniques, processes, where are your blind spots? And then the spotlight of today's webinar will go into a deep dive into the Go Live Readiness tool set. And it's an Elion framework for objective go, no-go decisions on your projects. That last opportunity to assess whether you're ready. So the bottom line here is we want to help make sure your projects are more successful. And let me move to the next slide. Okay, so today we're going to do some quick introductions, talk about the state of program performance, pause to think about challenges in IT programs, explore some program assurance techniques, and then dive into the spotlight topic of Go Live Readiness. So I'm confident this workshop will help you assess your own organization's blind spots and where you can make improvements to your arsenal of program assurance techniques. And Elion's always here to help you with that as well. As I said earlier, my name is Jamie Johnson. I'm delighted to serve as your co-instructor for today's session. Over my career, I've worked across many IT programs, beginning in software development, systems administration, then moving into systems engineering, program and project management, and ultimately into practices that really focused on program assurance. The work I have done in program assurance has centered ideally in the area of both preventing troubled programs and diagnosing and recovering challenge programs. So getting them back on track and delivering results. One example comes from my time working at Disney. I led a large program to ensure that systems handling all the credit cards that pass through the Disney systems were protected from cybersecurity threats. Despite significant delays and obstacles with the program, I applied several of the techniques we'll cover today in this workshop to that project to successfully remediate all the cybersecurity vulnerabilities. And we did ultimately achieve the first ever Disney cybersecurity certification for PCI, for those who are familiar. With that, I'll hand it over to Ray to introduce himself.
Hi everybody. So yeah, my name's Ray, and I've been working alongside Jamie for a while, but mainly what my specialization is using data transformation techniques. So the whole process of data, my whole goal is to take data from scratch, modify the data, clean the data, make it transform the data, do everything it takes to make it look appealing, and then use that data to do things such as build applications. So for instance, as you'll see later, one of the applications is the Go Live Readiness tool. But that my purpose is to do things like that. And I end up what it ends up doing is I end up using the Power App platform to take the information and present it and analyze it in a much more aesthetically pleasing way on something like Power BI. So there will also be a dashboard, for instance, with this application that you guys will be able to look into and observe. But yeah, that's mainly doing. And finally, one of the other things I handle is, like I said, data accuracy, making sure that the data is accurate, up to date, and also it matches what the business criteria is and what the business needs are. So that's sort of an introduction of myself. And I guess Karen is next, but she's not here. But I'll pass back to Jamie. So.
Okay, thank you, Ray.
Mhm.
Yeah, unfortunately, Karen couldn't make it today. Our esteemed Chief Strategy Officer. Here's a little bio describing her experience. Um, as I said, she's the Chief Strategy Officer of Elion Strategies. She has a lot of great experience in transformational programs, and the has a lot of experience in quality systems and areas that are right along these lines. Elion Strategies, to just give you a quick overview of Elion Strategies as a company that we all work with. We basically focus on helping government agencies, for the most part, achieve their IT project and portfolio successes. Secret sauce, I guess, is we do have, we've been in the AI space for a long time, longer than most companies. And we have a secret sauce there where we have an AI project driven by benchmark data that we've developed over the past 15 or so years, and portfolio modeling and capability assessments that help that are powered by industry frameworks, standard frameworks that you're probably all familiar with, that we can uniquely tailor to your enterprise and needs. So we do have these AI products that really help our consultants and gives them a superpower, if you will, helps them process lots of information about benchmark data and other programs to help us have better insights on how to help you. And in terms of what we do, we help the government agencies, as I said, help or perform work at the strategy level, the architecture, portfolio, and project levels. Ray, let me just ask you see any questions in the chat or the
No,
Q&A?
there's no questions in either the chat nor the Q&A. So.
Okay. Okay, this next slide really goes over the Standish report, which maybe you're familiar with. This is really a report that's put out annually regarding project performance. Um, and ultimately, our IT programs are susceptible to significant challenges, as you know, and as the subject of this webinar. As a recent example of a widely publicized failure or challenge project was the state of Idaho Luma project. Um, it was basically a state government project to overhaul, modernize IT systems, human resources, payroll, things like that, across all of the Idaho government agencies. And it faced significant challenges. The launch caused lots of procedural errors, data errors, disruptions to the operations of the state, and criticism from legislators. So root causes that they determined are they had challenges in terms of getting the change management portion of the program on track, the readiness of both the users and the workflows. They had what appeared to be fairly weak contract specifications, um, generic requirements, too generic, as I understood, lack of customized specifications tailored to the application needs for the state of Idaho, and probably insufficient oversight as well, from what I could see. They had, and from a data perspective, they had inadequate data validation for their data migrations and governance of that data in terms of policy, process, and the actual implementation of the data migration. And they also face challenges from moving from their legacy environment to this new ERP system in terms of understanding the legacy environment and the capabilities, the algorithms, and things like that, due to challenges in the legacy system, documentation, and resources. So if we look at the Standish Group report, you can see here, a large percentage of projects either fail outright or have significant shortcomings. The report gathers and analyzes this IT project failure data and success data as well through a comprehensive methodology. So it's a good source to understand how things are going with IT programs. And it uses, just so you're aware of how it works, it gathers data from surveys, interviews, and data collection from different industries and projects to have a comprehensive view of the state of our craft. So the other thing I would say is there are both obvious and less obvious impacts of project failure that we should recognize. There's more hidden aspects on the impact of not having the benefits that the program was going to deliver to your customers, to your stakeholders, to your end users, to your business. There's the impact on the project staff if the project's challenged, their burnout, possible turnover. Then there's reputational impact, which could impact the ability to attain and attract good staff over the long haul. And lastly, there can be a risk premium where future vendors are hesitant to work with your organization if they understand that you've had challenges with these big programs. So you want to be known as a partner that has a good track record with program success. So there's a lot of good reasons to, a lot of impacts rather from challenge programs, and a lot of good reasons to have a program assurance arm for your projects. So what are we talking about when it comes to common risks for programs? This is just a slide to give you some examples of things that I've uncovered in my career, a sample of root causes, if you will. Um, and it's really important to understand that program assurance should recognize that many issues will surface during a project. There will be many different issues that surface, and they tend to bear themselves differently in different phases of the project, is my experience. If you think about it, each phase of the project will introduce new complexities, and the team will naturally have strengths in certain phases and maybe not in others. which means the program really needs that continuous diligence to proactively monitor and mitigate risk. Um, so there's rarely a single factor that results in program challenges. It's something that requires continuous diligence. Ray, any questions in the chat?
No.
Okay, this phenomenon of challenge programs is so prolific, as I like to say, that they even wrote a book about it that you can see here on the screen, The Death March. And not a very nice term, obviously. Historically, all projects involve a certain degree of risk and pressure, but many of the projects in today's chaotic business environment involve such intense pressure that somebody wrote a book about this. And they refer to this as the death march projects, projects whose schedules could be so compressed or budgets so short or resources so constrained that it becomes a near death march. And this is unfortunate, but something that can be prevented. And the corporate goal of many of these projects is obviously to overcome these odds and achieve the success of the program. And the personal goal of the project managers and the team members might be that they're just trying to survive on some of these projects. So there's some real negative outcomes that can occur if a project turns into a death march. So I think folks probably have experience with either participating in some of these or hearing about them or reading about them, like the state of Idaho. But I just wanted to show you that it's even a book, maybe a movie someday. Uh, Maybe if quick exercise to get people thinking, if you could put in the chat maybe an example of why you believe IT programs are inherently complex, or share a real world example of a project that became unexpectedly complicated, or what became complicated that you didn't anticipate. That would be good to get us thinking. So I'll take a pause here for a minute to get some examples into the chat or the Q&A. If you see something come across the chat, just let me know what you see, Ray.
Yeah, okay, something just came in. Unclear project requirements.
Very common situation. In fact,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about that in the next slide a little bit.
Okay, here we go. Provisioning cloud resources. Okay, now people are getting answers in here, but provisioning cloud resources can become very complex because of added processes such as approvals, standards, requirements, funding received, etc. All right. When the true scope wasn't originally fleshed out, multiple funding sources can be variable. The solutions are variable. Poor communication, scope creep. Vendor says something is a plug and play or out of the box, basically just like imagination. I think that's what that means. Created by people who don't use the program, lack of sponsor support, having to go through the project approval life cycle. Okay, so stuff like that.
Excellent. Those are great examples. Thank you so much.
IT done with big ideas, and okay, there's more coming in, but yeah,
Yeah, I'll
yeah,
read those over. That's fantastic.
yeah.
So these next two slides provide some answers that I've witnessed firsthand or did some research on. These are a list of reasons that IT programs could become naturally complex. Um, and kind of a digression from this a little bit. My son's a structural engineer, so I'm always wondering why in his industry more things don't fall down, whereas IT programs, there's a lot of programs that fall down. So I'm always curious as what the differences are in terms of our professions. As a interesting side note. So these two slides give some examples. So let's take the first one, abstraction. I think that was mentioned in the examples. We can take very broad goals in a lot of RFPs and projects, but we don't have the detailed specifications yet. So as the journey goes on the program from broad goals to detailed specifications, there's so many potential results, which can result in increased effort, increased complexity, and it can take a project that has a much more modest effort envisioned and make it a much more complex program very quickly. And then to make matters even worse, sometimes a lot of projects are set up with a contract from end to end, but this abstraction phase on trying to do requirements analysis can result in significant changes in terms of scope, schedule, budget, and resulting in an unrealistic situation given the original schedule and budget. And it may also result in a quick shift in the project's scope, schedule, and budget right out of the gate. And then that can trigger challenges to get the resources you need. And so I think you get the gist of it. It's something that as we get more away from the abstraction of the project and folks start understanding what they would like to do with the applications, then the complexity can grow. Um, so sometimes a lot of projects just stick to a minimum viable product to try and mitigate that risk rather than take on the expanding scope out of the gate. That's probably something you've experienced, but that's one technique to try and manage that situation. The key is to understand when it's happening and make a conscious decision to manage it instead of letting it overcome the program. Um, Another example is the interdisciplinary nature of IT projects. There's so many, dang skills needed to do an IT project. Um, you've got you've got skills and expertise required for integrating different technologies. You've got different skills needed for having the right testing done with the right subject matter experts to ensure the application works correctly. You need expertise for cybersecurity vulnerabilities, expertise to make sure that the product meets its technical soundness, and such as performance requirements and scalability requirements. So as you can see, this requires a lot of planning, coordination, ensuring these different skills are available to the project at the right time, and that they're able to coordinate and talk. And um, if any of these essential experts are not available or delayed in their availability for the program, it can impact the timeline. So you can see how quickly that can become a complexity that impacts the project. This next slide is another set of areas that make it complex. Um, I call them factors of complexity, and we're going to talk about a tool that's in our tool set when we go through that helps you with this complexity analysis. Um, so how many folks have had challenges with legacy systems, mapping data to understand how to map data from legacy to this new system you're developing, or trying to understand the internal logic and algorithms of legacy systems? Uh, and this can be leave you in a situation where you have incomplete information and challenges to migrate from a legacy to a new system. Um, and then the last item I'll mention here as an example is the skills gap. So it shows up as we see this rapid technology changes, new technologies coming out all the time, and people are trying to catch up with understanding it, but they still lack that experience with the technology, which only comes with time. So, for example, a new version of software can arrive, but it hasn't been performance tested, or people are unaware of its capabilities and how it really works. Um, and your project can be the first to discover challenges or issues with that new technology. And I've seen that in many cases in my career, where new technologies are put together, a unique stack, if you will, of different technologies that don't work well together. I've seen that. So these are all important things to recognize in advance and ask yourself as you're starting the project, planning the project, are you venturing into something that's unique? And if so, maybe you need to do some earlier testing to make sure that you're shaking out the technologies that are going to need to be integrated. So hopefully this gives you a good list of things that could make projects complex. Let's pause for a second here. I just wanted to talk about program assurance since I think it helps to have some terminology to define what we're trying to do. We're trying to help with the probability of program success, and program assurance is a term I tend to use to define um, trying to basically monitor the program, critically analyze the program so that you can see where your risk and challenges and issues might be in advance, be as proactive as possible. Um, and, you know, Fortunately, the challenges, the underperforming or failed projects is both unnecessary and avoidable if you have this program assurance arm on your programs to be able to look ahead, look around the corner, and be anticipating these things. And many of the tools we'll go through will show you how you can do that. So by understanding where and how programs get off track in delivering their value, you can proactively have a early warning system, if you will. And remember, there's rarely a single factor that results in program challenges. It requires that diligence throughout the program lifecycle. Um, as you change from one project phase to another, most projects have phases. You've got to set up new processes. You might need new resources and skills, new technologies. So there's always a risk with those shifts in the phases. Um, Go to the next slide. Any questions in the Q&A, Ray?
No, nothing, sir.
Okay. Okay, now we're going to go into the tool, call it the tool chest. So this is the first tool. It really harkens back well to the discussion about complexity. This is an Elion tool that essentially helps you assess complexity of your program and also look at the maturity of your organization. Because if you have a mature organization in certain aspects, then the complexity might not be a large risk to your program. But if you have low maturity in that particular area and you have high complexity in that particular area, then clearly you have a potential risk. I call this complexity assessment tool that we use and developed um, kind of a size matters assessment. So in many cases, the size of the project team can cause a risk in the program and cause a complexity in the program because of all the necessary communications that need to occur and all the coordination that needs to occur. It could also be the amount of development requirements that can drive complexity. How many folks have really, made a conscious effort at the beginning of their program to assess complexity? I'm not sure really what the percentage is, but I do find a lot of projects start without regard to thinking about the complexity and having that honest discussion around the maturity of the organization to manage the complexity, where you might need outside assistance, and then what would be your risk mitigation plans for those areas. Just so you know, these radar charts at the bottom are kind of the way that Elion developed this tool so that you can basically using a survey of questionnaires that we have for different complexity dimensions of a project. Uh, the green areas are where you have a high maturity level, and the red areas are where you have a high complexity level. So where there's a lot of red showing, you have more complexity than maturity. So that's how you read this analysis and this report ultimately. And so you can look at your project across all these different dimensions, and these are all standard dimensions built into the tool. And then it will basically show you this kind of output in terms of where you might need to have some risk mitigation plans. So again, I view complexity as the level of risk due to various factors, such as the volume of things, the volume of stakeholders. It may be the number of integrations or team size, the number of technologies, the newness of the technology. You might be first of a kind with certain technology. So basically, this tool will look at all those different dimensions and help you do this analysis so you can make a critical analysis of your risk when it comes to complexity versus maturity. So we look back at my project at Disney, for example. One of the complexities was understanding the need for very strong planning and communication to develop this trust with the organization, because the application owners really were hesitant to turn the systems over for fear of having outages and downtime. So you really need to develop that trust relationship with the application owners, because they really had a lot of authority over their applications and could decide what IT initiatives they wanted to support. So it really wasn't a top-down situation where application owners were told they needed to support the cybersecurity project. Um, so we developed, if you will, kind of a change management and a relationship with all those application owners so we could develop trust with them, basically through helping them understand our plans, helping them understand when things went south, what we were going to do to fix it quickly, and how we were going to implement the changes in test environments, development environments, and make sure that they were 1,000% comfortable that the changes were not going to affect their production environment, and that we can move forward to go into production. Okay, so this is the first tool I wanted to share with everybody. And again, I don't think there's a lot of tools in the market that um, do this type of thing. And Ray, just interrupt me if there's any questions in the
Yeah, there
chat.
actually was. There, that's what I
Okay,
was waiting for you. But yeah,
okay,
I'll quickly, and I'll press the answer live button. But
sure.
Sankar asks, how do you approach solving problems when you're stuck or overwhelmed?
Uh, Personally, I guess I'm sure people do that differently depending on the individual. If you're overwhelmed and or stuck, if let's take the stuck one first, then I would try and understand uh, what skills that would be helpful to analyze a problem, come up with alternative solutions, weigh those solutions. But I would definitely, if I was stuck, probably get other people with skills in a particular area of this problem together to talk about the problem and collaborate with them. That would be one way to try and address a stuck situation. And if I'm feeling overwhelmed, then clearly I probably not going to be working very effectively or efficiently. And so I need to become underwhelmed and I need to get some help. So I'd probably look to get some help. When I basically this relates back to time management and how do you manage your time? What things can you delegate? What things do you need to really take care of that are pressing that have to be completed today or this week? For people who are familiar with the Eisenhower matrix, I use the Eisenhower matrix a lot to try and come up with the four quadrants of where I stick tasks that need to be done. Do I need to take care of it immediately? Can I can I schedule it in the future when it's just in time? Can I delegate it or can I ignore it? So that's what I tend to do with my tasks when I get overwhelmed. Hopefully that helps, and maybe we'll do a webinar on time management. Any other questions in there, Ray?
Oh no, that was the only one.
Okay. So here's the next tool, earned value management. So if you've had experience with earned value management, please drop something in the chat. That would be great to see. Um, we'll probably do an upcoming webinar on this particular topic because it deserves it. Basically, earned value management helps you track cost overruns, schedule delays, performance issues of the project, identify these risks earlier before it grows. And this is really a tool to help with an objective way to measure project progress on your projects, as the name implies, earn value. Um, And the federal government mandates a lot of projects, I believe. It might be 10 or $20 million projects that are required to use earned value. And there are many different techniques to implement it, but the concept is pretty simple. You want to quantify the effort of the project deliverables in terms of dollars, labor resources, technology that's used to achieve that particular deliverable, and the effort. And you want to calculate the actual versus planned work completed. So there's an upfront investment to quantify the effort of the work, but once you set it up, it's a very powerful way to measure that you have objective progress and get early warning signs about cost or schedule potential overruns. Um, and let me give you an example. So if you have two deliverables, and deliverable A is a functional, secure online payment system integrated into a website. That could be deliverable A. And deliverable B is a set of updated color themes and um, icons for a website's homepage and basically the look and feel. Both deliverables are important, but deliverable A probably has far greater business value because it directly enables your revenue collection. Um, Deliverable B is maybe more cosmetic, useful for branding, but not mission critical. So deliverable A will have more effort assigned and more budget, and then when you're measuring your progress on your project, you award more credit to deliverable A than deliverable B in terms of progress in your project. If you were to award more credit or equal credit to deliverable A and B, that may not give you the accurate situation of what you've achieved on the project. So I know earned value management's been considered a very valuable and effective technique for the U.S. federal government. I know of some state of California projects that use it, and particularly large IT defense projects. And it's a very useful way to measure objective progress on a program and make it less emotional, make it less intangible, or uh, make it more up for debate. So that's all the benefit of that.
Yeah, so sorry to cut you off. Real quick,
Yep.
so there's two questions. The first one was whether the presentation's going to be made available, which I think it should be,
Oh,
right?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that will be made available. And the second question is sort of related to, let me read what this says. It says my experience is that EVM requires key program slash project infrastructure like time tracking to the task by resources, etc. I've not encountered it in public sector organizations. Any recommendations for this type of situation?
I recommend that on large programs where you really can't afford to fail, that you use earned value management. And you can, I would call it, sometimes call it EVM light. You can set up EVM light scenarios so you don't go down to the uh, Joe from consulting company B charge 1 hour to this deliverable and track it at that level. You could track it at a higher level so that you don't create an accounting nightmare. So there are ways to do that to make it EVM light. I've seen that at the federal level and the state level. So there are techniques, and so I think if you want to entertain EVM, let us know, and we can certainly come up with some different stratified ways to do it with different levels of effort, so that you can avoid the making it too burdensome to your program. And then the earlier question about the deck, yes, we will send out both the recording, the deck, and I think we're going to send out a short little survey too to get your feedback on how to improve these webinars going forward. Okay, the next tool in the tool chest is called independent government cost estimation. Um, and this one, if you rely on third-party vendors for cost estimates, my question would be, do you have any way to validate the reasonableness of those cost estimates? Um, Unfortunately, a lot of programs get themselves in a situation where they really don't have any way to independently validate them. Um, and if you think about it, many times you become very dependent on these vendors for their estimates, but really at the mercy of whether they are accurate or not. So this technique is to have either an independent estimate by other government personnel who are familiar with estimating techniques, or another third party, which is integrated into your project team part-time to do these estimates. So there are many benefits of this, aside from the obvious. Aside from the obvious, it can uncover a misunderstanding on scope of the project. Um, it can also greatly help when you have multiple vendors working in the same area, but it's not clear which portion of deliverables each vendor is responsible for. So the independent, body doing the estimate can help facilitate, organize, and shed light on how that should be structured. Um, and the technique that I've used in the past is plus or minus 10%. So we're not trying to spot on be exactly to the dollar of what the vendor estimates. We feel that if we're within plus or minus 10% of the vendor estimate, that's good enough and to validate that it's a reasonable estimate and move on the project. If there's a wider gap, then you want to ask questions, you want to discuss the differences, you want to understand how they're defining the scope versus you're defining the scope, and dig into that, because you might find there's a misunderstanding on how things are done, or in some cases you might find out that the math was wrong. I found that where the vendor's math is wrong on how they applied their effort to certain activities. Okay. This next slide just is an example detailed tracker of what IGCE activities could look like. And this tracker we've implemented in a couple of clients, and it's useful to really help the management understand which vendors may have a pattern of work authorizations that are really requiring this independent evaluation versus some that maybe it's not worth the time to do evaluation of. Um, and it can help you understand what your potential savings, both in potentially dollars and just risk, managing the risk of the program. It could be that the vendor's greatly underestimating the effort, and they're going to come back later and ask for more money. So I've seen that scenario too, where independent estimates uh, believe the estimate is well short of what it should be for the work. Okay. Time-wise, we're at 9:45. Let me suggest we'll take a short, short break here. It's almost halfway. What we've got is a number of slides to go through, including the go live readiness, and then we'll have Ray provide a demonstration. But let's take a short little break here, and let's say at 9:50 Pacific, we'll start up again. Everybody can get a little coffee or something. Okay. Ray, are there any more questions in the chat?
No, no
Okay.
question.
Okay. Let's just take a little break here. Okay, Ray, I think we're ready to get started again.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, this next tool set from Elion is called the risk state diagnostic. Um, it's a tool set and a technique to assess the risk state at multiple times in a program, basically using uh, proven expectations for a healthy program. And I imagine everybody who's worked in IT programs knows what healthy tends to look like. So what we've done is collect those expectations up over many hundreds of programs and put together a diagnostic that will help you make that assessment. Um, all too often, the project status reporting may not provide a completely realistic picture of where there is some potential risk or lingering issues. Um, I kind of call this the trust but verify tool set. So the team may be working very hard, but are they working on the right things? Are they ignoring something that they can't get an answer to or an issue? For example, if there's a key decision on to be made on scope, are they prioritizing this, or is it something that's lingering? As an example, so these kinds of things will come out of this risk diagnostic. So my question would be: does your organization have a proven set of expectations and techniques to uncover these risks and understand the true performance of the project? It does take a little bit of work to put these together, um, but once you've put these together, or Elian can certainly help you, then you have a library that you can use on all future programs. And by the way, that goes to be said for all these tools, is that certainly Elian can help you develop these, or you could take these ideas and they could be the genesis of you creating them independently and pulling these together in your enterprise PMO. And for your more complex projects or your larger projects, you can mandate that these tools be used. Um, so ultimately, this particular diagnostic really just gives you more peace of mind your project is operating healthy. Um, and as an example, again, are your projects tracking correctly on the aging of issues and risk? Are the issues aging and needing to be taken care of? Are the issues even formally captured in some cases? So um, so these are the kinds of things this diagnostic can help with. So no project is perpetually in green, as I like to say. So the goal of this diagnostic is really to identify the high risk areas that need immediate attention and those items that can provide the greatest positive impact on your program at the time that you do this. And that's the focus, not to try to make everything green. And this particular diagnostic, I recommend be used regularly, um, um, on a regular basis. Usually once during every program phase is a good rule of thumb. But you want to give the new phase time to break in the new processes and settle in before you probably use this diagnostic. And Ray, just interrupt if there's any questions. Okay, program metrics is the next area. So uh, if I asked everybody to raise their hand if they think their organization could do better on publishing project metrics, program metrics for understanding the health of their projects, I would think there'd probably be a lot of hands that go up. There's always a way to do that better, but sometimes metrics are not really a conscious thing thought about at the beginning of the project. So what we do at Elion is we devise metrics uh, in the planning phase of a project. We determine what metrics would make sense throughout the life cycle of the project, and then how you might capture those and develop those reports against those metrics throughout the continuum of the project. Um, so you want to have meaningful program metrics, which really can help with early warning signs of trouble. The metrics can relate to the deliverable completion rate, obviously. It can relate to the project management processes like risk management, issue management, schedule, so all those different areas. But as you shift from one program phase to another, you'll have different deliverables, and you might have some different teams, some different processes you need to identify. So on the next slide, I'll showcase an example of metrics on decision making that Ray and I developed. And the point of this one is, wouldn't it be good if you really had a report card on your decision making? And most projects have a decision log. And wouldn't it be good if you had some way to track, are we making decisions on a timely basis? And what teams are having most of the decisions? Why is it this team has no decisions to make? Isn't that odd? It will help you raise a number of questions. Let me go to this slide here. So this is the dashboard, sample dashboard that we developed for decision making. We've used on some programs, and the metrics fall into several camps. So it's helping understand the speed of decision making, which you can see in the upper right. The median cycle time is greater than 20 days. That's not necessarily good. If in this particular case, decisions that took more than 20 days was a bad thing, so it was red. Anything between 10 and 20 was amber, and green was less than 10. You also have trends of decisions by work stream. You have lagging indicators on who's making the decisions and what types of decisions are being made. And then you have, lower right-hand corner, a really important thing, just where are the age decisions? What's burning? What needs to be discussed and resolved? So I always say, who wouldn't want this as part of the start of every governance meeting to see how we're doing? So we've developed this using a Power App front end and Power BI, and it can also work directly off of Decision Log. Okay, next tool set we're moving on to is stage gate reviews, and feels like it could be very waterfall in the day of agile these days, but I still find the agile projects tend to have phases, and it's still important to understand if you're ready for the next phase of the project. I like saying multitasking is merely the ability to screw up more than one thing at a time. So it's not good if you're trying to design things when you're in test, or you're trying to go live and there's still open design issues on things. So the point of the stage gate is really to assess whether you're really ready to move on to the next phase of the project. And it's also a chance to look at the business case again and reflect on, does this scope and this budget still make sense given the other priorities at the company or at the agency? Does it still make sense to continue this project? Should the project be delayed? Should the project be altered in terms of the scope based on the business case? And maybe the performance of the project is so challenged that you're questioning whether you're going to get there in time for when you need the project to be completed. So it's an important thing to do, and it helps you identify where you have projects that are challenged. Obviously, you could prevent further funding or are putting resources on a project that you may want to reassess. And it's really quite easy to prepare a standard set of stage gate criteria. You probably identified these on all your programs. You may just not have put them into one library and have them as a basis of a checklist to help with your project assessments. And a lot of companies don't do the stage gates, I find, these days, because they feel like the agile world doesn't need something like this, and I disagree. So I think your projects will still have phases, and it's still important to do this type of thing, or you risk that projects are going to have situations where they're operating multiple phases simultaneously. They're doing analysis, design, construction, testing all at the same time. And then it becomes a real issue. As someone mentioned earlier about being overwhelmed, you can imagine how overwhelmed somebody would be if they're a software engineer and they're having to do analysis, design, test. They can't just focus on a particular phase of the program. They're kind of all over the place. We've probably seen that before. Okay. Okay, so this next tool is, I call it the Project Manager Assistant. It's something that we've been working on at Elion. It's, um, it's basically a tool that can help, I believe, because it helps due to the complexity of managing projects. Wouldn't it be useful if you could just prompt a project manager sidekick to provide the right template for you at your beck and call? Or you could ask for sample workflows similar to your application, so you could build out some sort of support process, using ServiceNow or Jira or something like that, or locate the key task associated with org change for your new project and leveraging the standard frameworks and methods for organizational change in your agency or department. So the use cases here are really endless as to how this AI tool is going to work for us. It saves time to help the new project managers get up to speed quicker and onboard much quicker. And the view I have of this is that it can really have a return on investment, automating low value tasks such as finding the right templates or methodology task very quickly. It could also be used to help you with predictive analytics and helping identify risk that maybe are not currently in your risk register, but can be identified through the looking over of the project schedule. Um, uh, there can also be better decision support. So it'll help you identify the right task for a new project plan based upon the learnings of past projects. So this is a way to use technology to help us be smarter and faster. And so this is a new tool set that Elion's in development of. Let me pause there and see if there's any questions, Ray.
No questions.
Okay. Okay, and the final tool I wanted to touch on today, and again, I know there's lots of other tools out there that projects use, project managers use, EPMOs use, and I'd love to hear if anybody has any other innovations or things that they recommend that you don't see here today. We'd love to hear about it. I am aware there's many other tools. I selected these in particular because I usually start with these to apply to a given project that I'm working on. They help me look at the project from all these different dimensions. So the final tool I want to touch on today is called the Go Live Readiness Framework or Assessment Tool. Um, and I guess my question would be to the group, if you've experienced issues that go live that were unexpected, or issues that go live that you think were things that could have easily been validated prior to go live to prevent a problem at go live. So this tool is really for assessing the readiness state and helping with a more fact-based discussion on the risk of your go live. And this is what I call the last chance tool, right? So you're going to go live, and so this is the last chance to say, are we really ready? What are we unaware of? What things might be out there? What can we uncover that may be less obvious that we want to uncover now before it's too late? Um, as an example, I had a big ERP program I was doing a go live readiness assessment on, and that's where a lot of the basis of this tool set comes from. And I was doing a lot of go live readiness assessments, and I discovered that functional changes were coming, but they really weren't understood by the business very well. So, I did this through some interviews and some fact finding, looking at the organizational change management track. And I discovered that there were relatively few change impacts. For those that are org change savvy, there were relatively few change impacts identified in the change impacts deliverable. And so that kind of raised my curiosity. And I looked at those because those are part of my go live readiness assessment tool. And so when I looked at that deeper, I did discover that the business really wasn't aware of how their processes were going to change. And so digging deeper, we basically alerted the senior leadership, and they decided to delay the go live until they had done some more training in preparation for the business. And so if we had gone live without addressing the issue, we certainly would have brought the business into a troubled situation. So so just think about how many times your organization has gone live with the system, prepared for what they think are the right readiness tasks, and then they learn they may have missed something. So the tool doesn't guarantee you're not going to miss anything, but we do have nearly 800 expectations in this tool set, and the ability that you can add more to it as you learn more, and basically have a library that you can use to pull from. Uh, so, so why this isn't important? I think it's a factual basis for your go, no go decision. We have a dashboard that Ray's going to review with you that highlights the critical areas that need to be addressed, that are more impactful to your go live. And it really assists in eliminating unforeseen risk. Um, and then it really helps you just increase your confidence in your go live readiness state. So that's the whole point of this, very structured go live readiness assessment tool set. Okay, just quickly on the chat, if people could post anything that they want to mention about where any of these tools um, could be of value into your organization. Maybe, for example, you use stage gate processes today, but you don't really have a standard library, and you could see improvements there. Um, you know, then again, I just jokingly I'd say, isn't it Britney Spears who said it's not rocket surgery? I don't think any of these tools are rocket surgery. They just take some diligence in putting them together and then having them as a basis to help your programs going forward. So if you could hit the chat with a description of any tools and techniques that you've seen today that you would find valuable, and just love to hear your feedback on that, as well as any innovations that you've seen that are not part of these tools that you think that would be good to share with your colleagues out there. And we'll just give it a minute for people to reflect and provide any feedback on the tools we've gone over. And then after this, I'm gonna start the deep dive into the go live readiness assessment. So we'll just take a minute here. So Ray, let me know if you see anything pop up on the chat.
I just see it's not really a question. It's just more so like, oh, never mind. Now people are typing. But I'm just gonna read some of them. Go live readiness is a key graphic that's useful to ensure that we're ready. Yeah, that's true. The PM AI tool seems like it would be helpful, which yeah, I agree with that too. I think it would be. Having much more uniformed and available organizational metrics from dev and test would allow PMs and PMO to better monitor and track project status to allow us to be more proactive. We are noticing a trend where our business partners are adding requirements during the design phase. The project has already gone through budgeting and funding, and now they're adding requirements that will affect the number of hours. Oh, okay, yeah, and yeah, that looks to be it. I mean, people might be typing, but that's all I see. So the project management AI tool seems helpful. Okay, yeah.
Cool. Sounds like this is resonating with some folks as potentially useful areas. Okay.
Stage gate, there's one more that just came in. Stage gate approach can be implemented during the execute phase of the project, go live readiness, scope validation, etc. small check throughout that helps make sure that you stay on track with the original design.
Excellent. So it sounds like these things are resonating in areas where you all think that you can improve your diligence and program assurance by using some of these techniques. Okay, we'll transition now over to the deep dive into our Go Live readiness framework, um, and share with you the standard tool we developed, so you can see how it's organized and structured. We tried to develop it in a way that's going to be very flexible and be a tool that can live on in an organization for many years and benefit many projects. And as I said earlier in my career, I've been involved in many Go Live readiness assessments, some for some very major implementations. I worked in the IBM delivery excellence for many years, and we built up standard criteria that, based on our experiences with projects, and then use those criteria for evaluation of the project readiness. So we would do that as in our delivery excellence role. Um, And I would have to say that in my career, I do think the projects tend to have a very, for the most part, a lot of projects will have very informal or just in time capturing of go live readiness criteria, and then trying to evaluate them in the last 30 days of the project. So this project tool is really an attempt to provide structure and a framework for capturing those criteria, defining those criteria for your unique project requirements, and then reporting on go live readiness. And I do recommend that this be an exercise to think about in like a T minus 120 days of go live in that time frame, because you can't recover from things that are broken at T minus 30. Um, and everybody probably has experience where go live readiness was not where it should have been, and there were major issues, which could only be funny years later. One example that was embarrassing that I saw when I was in IBM Delivery Excellence was, we had a situation where a security consultant who was tasked with the uh, end user activation. So turning all the end users, activating all the end users for a multi-thousand end user system, overslept. And that was $100 million system implementation for a pharmaceutical. And due to that person oversleeping, the go live was delayed by several hours and kind of put the business into a frenzy because they didn't know whether they should back out and use their old system or go with their new system. And so, the learning from that was that you want to look for single points of failure in your go live readiness. Where do you have maybe individuals who are the only people who know how to do something? So that was the scenario there. So that was a learning for me. Okay. So the problem statement for our Go Live readiness framework is that, I do think Go Live criteria can be quite complex. Um, and the question would be, why do we consider them complex? Well, as we talked about earlier about projects having these complexities, you can have an exorbitant amount of requirements. You can have a lot of end users. You can have a lot of stakeholders. I hope you can quickly see the measurements of whether you are ready are fairly complex, not that easy. Um, you might have very technical criteria that need defining. So, for example, maybe the system must sustain 500 concurrent users with less than 3-second response time for your key transactions. So these things need to be thought through, and it's not something you're going to think about in the last 2 weeks of the project. Maybe you need, millions of records converted, and you need a 0.01% error rate on that data, or else you run the risk that you're not going to have all the data you need to start the new system. So what is your data migration criteria for readiness look like? Maybe you have downstream systems that you need to make sure have been fully tested with end-to-end scenarios for all the integrations with your billing, with your CRM, with your data warehouse. Validating all those things have been tested, all those scenarios have been tested. Um, Maybe you need to ensure that 95% of your users completed their training for the system before they and pass a knowledge check before they get handed keys to use it. Maybe that's an important criteria. Maybe you have HIPAA or PCI or GDPR or SOX controls that you want to validate are all in compliance with the new system, and you have an independent audit completed. So you can see how very quickly, if you start to dig deep on your project, you can come up with some pretty detailed but potentially very important criteria for assessing whether you're ready to go live. Okay, let's see here. So the framework that Elion built is really a standard process for organizing your go live criteria. We have pre-built criteria based on the hundreds of actual projects. Ray's going to provide a visual that can show you how the framework is structured. And the real benefit of this framework is having a real structured process for discovery of new criteria, defining the criteria, assessing the risk of those criteria. And we're going to talk about how you assess, every criteria is not equal. Some criteria certainly have more weight than others. And then you want to be able to report on your go live criteria so that you know exactly where you're at risk, where you need to focus if you're in the leadership role. Okay, this slide basically describes the features of our framework tool, both current and planned features. We're still planning some of the features, such as workflow we'd like to build out. So basically, this describes how we have a library of 800 existing criteria. You have the ability to pull from them. You can link your criteria to your project plan to understand where dependencies lie. We'd like to do more automation in that area, but you can certainly set up manual linkages now. You can assess the criteria for their impact on the program and understand the importance to achieve those criteria because, again, all criteria are not created equal. And then the reporting that we built in the dashboard basically gives you the big picture. So it gives you an understanding of what criteria are at risk and who's accountable for those criteria in your organization, because you need to assign criteria to the appropriate subject matter experts to be reporting on those criteria. And the reporting, you can think of it as a cockpit to really understand your go live readiness and land the plane. One quick diversion here on the risk aspect. So this chart, I think, is a 3x3, helps you understand the framework that we built into the tool. So along the y-axis, you have the impact of not achieving the criteria prior to go live, catastrophic, moderate, or minor. Along the x-axis, you have the confidence that the subject matter has in achieving the criteria in the time frame that's needed. And so the intersection really gives you a risk score that helps you know where you're in trouble. So anything that's clearly in the red would be areas that leadership would want to focus on once you set up your tool and have these criteria. Just stop me if there's any questions, Ray. Okay, a little on terminology, because I think it's helpful to have some terminology definitions discussed before we dive into the tool. So we have terminology and we have hierarchy. So we have what we call subject areas. And these subject areas define the categories of readiness. So we have these default categories set up in the tool: business and transition, the solution, the data, the hypercare, and the infrastructure. and which are all very typical IT project kinds of subject areas. And then each subject area has topics that are criteria or readiness topics, and the topics will have specific criteria related to them. So, for example, 95% of end users complete their mandatory training and pass a knowledge check would be a criteria, and that would live in a training delivery topic, which then lives in a business and transition subject area. So here's a good time to make a point about criteria. Um, and that point is, I think I made it earlier actually, criteria should be defined and measured long before the go live. Since a project that is 30 days before go live, you won't have time to fix things. So training curriculum, if you've got your training curriculum sideways, and you're at 30 days for go live, it's probably too late, right? So training curriculum being something that you want to make sure is buttoned down and approved and reviewed by your key stakeholders and will meet the needs of the business is all something you'd probably want to see buttoned up much earlier in time. So our framework helps you define these time horizons for your criteria so that you logically button up those criteria as soon as possible and early enough so that you're not having to scramble at the last minute. Okay. Okay, this next slide, I think I like this slide because for me anyway, I'm visual. So this helps with understanding what I mean by time horizons in our framework. So we have on the y-axis, you can see our subject areas that I mentioned before, with the addition of risk and issues and decisions, which are always going to be important leading up to go live. And then across the y-axis, you have the T minus dates, T minus 20, 90, 60, 30. And then inside each of the quadrants, the intersection is where you have your topics. And so you can see as the item in green, you have a strategy for training that has got to be buttoned up, obviously, at least T minus 120, if not earlier. You want your curriculum and content to be completed in T minus 90 or earlier. You want your registration and logistics for training in T minus 60, and you want your delivery completed in T minus 30. So this framework helps you organize these things. It can also be a check on your project plan to see if things are giving enough buffer between different phases of time. And the tool set is set up with these exact subject areas out of the box and topics, and again, about 800 criteria across these different topics. Okay, I think now we're going to shift over to Ray, and Ray's going to take control and provide a demonstration of the tool. So Ray, let's see here. Are you able to
You
take
have to
control, Ray?
unshare. You have to
Okay.
unshare and then I can share.
All right. Okay. I just allowed you to take over.
Right, so this is the tool right here. So just to be clear, by the way, thank you, Jamie, for giving everybody some context as to what some of these terms mean. But so ultimately, the goal with this tool and the whole goal of this application and everything that that depends on this application is to take these subject areas. So, for example, data, infrastructure, solution, hypercare, and business in transition, and production support, for example, to take these things and put them all together. And the whole purpose of this is to assess the readiness to see uh, how the criteria within our tools, how ready we are. So I'll go through each of these one by one, but just to start, there's these buttons at the bottom. So this first one right here is the project setup and flow. So if you were to click this over here on the right side, you get just a diagram, just basically explaining what the whole process is from the workshop where you get some training to setting up the project information, which includes the go live date, and then finding a way to import the data, maintaining the topics and criteria, and then executing the readiness and reviews. So you have this diagram available for information. But on this left side here, you have the ability to enter a target go live date. So just as an example, let's say we have the target go live date on December 1st. When you enter in December 1st, 2025, it first of all tells you what day it is, and then it gives you the calculated target dates, and this just goes 120 days prior to this date, 90 days, 60 days, and 30 days before. And you will have this button at the bottom that gives you the ability to submit the date. So when you submit the date, that date of December 1st, 2025, first of all, it will show that you have successfully submitted. It says you've successfully saved the date and that it's submitted, and it will also be reflected in the dashboard, which I will be showing later. But this is just that's just the project setup and flow. On the right, on the bottom right here, there is a how-to guide, which is just more so, which just gives more detail on a step-by-step basis. So, for example, we conduct a workshop to gather criteria. We set up the project information. So we're doing things in this step. We're doing things such as giving the project a name, assigning a manager, giving an admin, and then setting the target go live date, which is what I just did. The next step would just be to import the criteria data. So we have the data in Excel, for instance, we create a SharePoint list and upload the Excel sheet. We add the SharePoint list as a data source for our input form for the form here, and we connect a data table object to that SharePoint list just so we have up to date at just so that way we can reflect the Excel sheet's data into this. And but the next step would just be to maintain the topic. So we give a topic name, which I feel is pretty self-explanatory what that is. The description, where you give a description for the topic. The time frame. This is sort of where we take the time frame and we're deriving it, and we base it off of whether it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or 120 days prior to the go live date. We have the topic's owner, whoever oversees the criteria, the confidence level, and the impact. Now, these are two things that were sort of related in the risk matrix that was shown earlier. So the confidence level, as Jamie pointed out, was how confident we are in the topic being completed by the expected time frame. So we have a default value for this of medium. However, we have the option to go low, medium, or high, depending on people's thoughts on it. And we have the impact. The impact is the other part of this risk matrix, and this is how what occurs. This is the impact basically if the topic is not resolved in time by that time frame. It's non-editable, but the PMO is usually the one that handles this, but it takes on one of the three options below over here. So minor, moderate, or catastrophic. So this is usually that's what leads to the risk matrix. And then we have a step to maintain the criteria, which, as Jamie pointed out, is linked to a topic, which is then linked to a specific subject area. So as you can see, there is each of these in this screen, which I'll show later. You have the ability to view a subject area, the topic name, the criteria, the status of the criteria, where you have the option for on track, late, or completed, what work product is associated with this criteria, and then if there's any blockers or issues, we can give an update on what that is. And then finally, the last step is to just launch the dashboard, which I will show how to do that. There's a button to do that. But we have a summary dashboard with counts of topics and criteria. We have the subject area dashboards, where for each specific subject area you can get more information on that subject area's information. And then finally we have this risk rating, where we're using impact and confidence level. So this is just more of a detailed breakdown. So, okay, with that, I will just show one of these as an example. So I'll show the business subject area, but each of these is, by the way, is exactly the same structure. So as you can see, there will be a chart that says topic name, the description, the time frame, who owns it, the confidence level, and impact. But as an example, I can go over here, and let's say I wanted to, you have the ability, first of all, to click each one of these, and it will show the information. It will show the subject area, the topic name, description, all of the information you want to see. Now let's say, for example, you looked at this and you were like, wait a second, this isn't 60 for the time frame, it's actually 90 for whatever reason, right? You can press 90 here and you can submit, and it will say the record is updated successfully, and it will indeed update the record. And the cool thing is, if you were to click something below, for example, let's say I were to change this from 30 to 60, right? If I were to submit this, it will actually put that record up at the top. So it's taking the most recently modified record and putting it up at the top. So this might be useful if you need to go back and change the same record from before. You have that ability now, and each one of these subject areas, as I mentioned, has the same sort of structure. And if you just want to see the information once again, you can click through. So each one of these 5 subject areas has this ability. Now, on the right here, before I do that, actually, there is also an option to, for whatever reason, if you want to create a new topic, right? You have that ability here. So I can press the new button, and I can say I could just type in something, right? I can just type in whatever I want. Let's say Jamie owns this, right? I can create something like this, and uh, I can create the record, and it will update successfully. And as you can see, it's up here, right? So we have this topic here, and if I ever wanted to remove the topic, which let's say I don't need this topic anymore, I can remove the topic, and it will give me information about the topic, in this case the number of topics, which is 1, and the number of associated criteria, which in this case is 0 because it's a new topic. But I have the option to back out of this by pressing this X button. I can just press the no button, which essentially does the same thing, or I can press yes, which will actually go ahead and it will give this message up above. uh I'm just gonna pause for a second. I saw something in the chat. Jamie, is there anything that I can answer, or should I just keep going?
Yeah, we just had a question on the deck being shared. Just to remind everybody, we will be sharing the deck and the recording within a couple business days at the latest.
Okay, okay. All right. So before I show the dashboard, actually, which is this button here, there is the criteria, which, as I mentioned before, it has the same it's a similar structure. So you on the right hand side, you'll see the topic name, the criteria, the status, the work product, and the description of the blocker issue. And like each of these subject areas, you have the ability to submit to modify an existing record like this one, for example. You have the ability to create a new record, or in this case, a new criteria for any particular topic you want. And you also have the ability to delete a criteria for whatever topic you want. So it's very flexible. You have the ability to do whatever. And by the way, just for this criteria, these 3 fields are the things that are required, and everything else is sort of not required after that. So with that, I'll go ahead and show the dashboard. So to get access to the dashboard, all you have to do is click this button here, and what it will do is on your browser, the it will go ahead and show you the the dashboard. So over here, uh I know this says the 11/01/25, but if you remember from before, I don't know why it's not refreshing, but essentially what happens is if you submit that date, the date will be modified here. So just to quickly describe what you're seeing here. This first page right here is the summary page. So on the summary page, you have a page navigator to each of these specific subject areas. So in this case, you can see business readiness, hypercare readiness, data readiness, infrastructure readiness, and solution readiness. You will have access to each of these and the risk rating by topic and criteria that was mentioned before. Now over here is the go live date, which it should be 12/01/25, but sometimes it'll take a minute to refresh. But anyway, so you have that go live date that was submitted from before. You'll have the number of days until the go live date. So this is how many days this date is from today's date. So that happens to be 39 in this example. And over here you have the number of topics without criteria. Now, there are 0 topics without criteria because we deleted that new topic from before. But if there are topics that don't have any criteria, you have the ability to right click, press drill through, and you can easily go and you will see what topics there are. In this case, there are none. So, but you have that that is something that is available if you created a new topic, for example, and you wanted to see what it was. So going back here, for each of these subject areas, as you could see, we have these boxes here, and these just show the number of topics that lie in with that are within that specific subject area, and then the number of total criteria that are within that subject area. So you can see this information for each one of the 5 subject areas listed above here. So business, solution, data, infrastructure, and hypercare. And on the bottom here, we have this is just taking the number of criteria as a whole, and it's separating it by 2 things. So first of all, the T minus 120 date, the T minus 90 date, so on and so forth. And these dates are derived from the go live date. So if this updates, then these 4 will update as well. But the number of criteria is being split by which one of these T120 dates, T90 dates, whichever one of these dates it lays in the expected time frame. And also it's also being split by the status. So whether the criteria is completed, whether it's late, or whether it's on track. And here the cool thing is you can see the number of criteria for each one of these by status, but also you can see the total, which there's some benefit to each of these. Now, I'm just gonna go to one of these. So just as an example here, each one of these are structurally is the same. So you have the ability to look at the T120, T90, T60, and T30 for a specific for a specific subject area. So in this case, this would just be the business readiness. And you can see the number of criteria that exist here, and a breakdown by what their status is. So in this case, 49 of them are business readiness that are in 120 but are completed. So you can see each of this information for each one of these expected time frames. And the interesting thing is at the bottom here, you have the ability to see statuses, to see the criteria in more detail. So as shown here, if you wanted to see what this blue one was here, right, for T60 and completed, all you would have to do is select the time frame and then select the status, and it will show you what that topic is and what the criteria name is and what topic it belongs to. So in this case, it belongs to train the trainer. And you can do this for anything. So for example, if you wanted to see what was late for T90, it's the same sort of thing. You would press 90 and late, and you would see that these are the 2 that are late. So it works no matter which one you pick, as long as it exists, or as long as it's shown here. So each one of these 5, if I can quickly go through them, each of these are exactly the same. But now, the last thing on the last page, the last dashboard for this is the risk rating. So as Jamie pointed out earlier, there is an impact and a confidence, and with that, we get what's called a risk score, or in this case, a risk rating. So if you wanted to see, for example, which topics of yours were in red, right? Since those are things that are important that those are things that might be a problem, right? We look at that, we can see, okay, new process governance is low, has a red risk score, role mapping, thinking strategy, training strategy. So if you wanted to see which one of these criteria, what the criteria were for a topic, all you have to do is just click the topic, and you can see what that is. And if you wanted to see multiple ones, you could just press Control and you can click, and it will show you all of them, and it will give more detail here. But you just have to click out of it if you want to see. If you click out of it, you'll get all of the criteria that's associated with this. So this is just the dashboard as a whole, and this is the tool as a whole. So if I'm not sure if there's any other questions, but if not, I can pass it back to you, Jamie.
Okay, thank you, Ray. This looks
I'll
good.
pass it back to you.
Okay, let me pull this up. Okay. So I guess if folks could hit the chat, be curious if anybody has any feedback on the Go Live Readiness Framework. Is this something that might be of potential interest in your organization, either now or in the future? Any feedback is welcome. I'll just pause for a minute to see if there's any comments back, Ray, before we move on.
Right. Doesn't appear to be, but maybe, okay, there we go. Good framework definitely expands upon other go live readiness work I've seen in the past. Okay. Is this currently being used within the US Census Bureau?
Not to my knowledge, unless they've
Yeah.
someone else at Elion has
Yeah.
introduced it to them. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'd love to use it out there. Absolutely.
Yeah. That'd be pretty credible.
Yeah. Again, I think it's something that we'd love to, you know, get more traction in the business areas that could benefit by it. I think that moderate sized programs would be a good starting point for projects to get used to it and customize it to your organization. And then you could scale it up and use it on a larger program as well. We've also been thinking about tying it to Jira. We see a lot of our clients using Jira, and it seems like a framework that would work very nicely in a Kanban board type structure. So we're also looking at porting it over to Jira as well. Okay, let's go to I think we're almost at the last slide here. So we're getting close to the end of the webinar. I appreciate everybody's patience. Hopefully you've gotten some valuable insights and made you at least think about some things in terms of project complexity or tools that you might want to either build or invite Elion to help you develop, but tools that can help you critically examine your projects from more dimensions than maybe you have in the past. So what this slide really is an attempt to kind of put it all together for you. And I modeled this after when I've helped other EPMOs put together what do we do for a living kind of chart. uh, this chart basically shows the at the top the different project phases that you typically have on a project, and obviously you could customize this, and then where you would apply different tool sets at different points in the project. So as you can see, the complexity scanning you'd want to do in the planning and design phase of the project. That's usually when you do that, you're usually done with complexity scanning. You know what your complexities are at that point. You've determined your risk mitigations. You've shored up your maturity if you've had to hire more skills in particular areas, and you're kind of done with complexity scanning. Unless you're adding more scope to the project, you usually do that in the beginning and you're done. The program risk state you will do through each of your primary phases. The stage gates, obviously, you'll do at the end of each of your phases. The independent cost estimates, that's really going to be on demand as you have work order authorizations from vendors. The schedule, the earned value we went over is something you typically do monthly, and that's sufficient to do monthly on a big program. And maybe for certain projects that are shorter, you might do it more weekly. I've seen that as well. And then go live readiness, you want to do it obviously gearing up T minus 120 at the latest is what I typically see, to have your criteria ready and your tool seated with all the information by T minus 120. And then you have a series of go live readiness formal checks before you make your final decision. So this is uh, this is where we lay out the 8 different program assurance tools we went through today and show you kind of where these different tools can fit. The one you don't see in here, obviously, is the AI tool. That one we're still developing, so I didn't put it on the chart. But this is kind of putting it all together.
Oh
Okay,
yeah. Sorry, there's some questions. I guess there was like a
sure.
few. First one was asking, is there an estimated cost associated with this setup that you could share, and what type of software hardware is being used? That was like the first question.
Was it related to the go live readiness or was
Yeah,
it real?
yeah, it was.
Oh,
But
okay.
I mean, software, hardware, I mean, software is just Power BI and Power Apps, but I mean, I'm sure you could answer the cost part, but
Yeah, Microsoft Power BI and Power Apps is how we
yes.
built the initial Go Live Readiness framework and tool set, which is pretty ubiquitous in the market. And as I said, we're thinking of also using a Jira structure, setting up a Jira structure to allow us to pull in the data for the reporting and so forth. Um, and as far as cost goes, it's really a discussion with Karen Morphy, our Chief Strategy Officer. She would make she makes those decisions. Typically, what we do on these engagements, though, is if we're involved in the consulting side of the project, we bring a lot of these tools at no cost, but ultimately that would be a Karen decision. But typically that's been the case in the past for these types of PMO tools. Any other questions in there, Ray?
Yeah, there was one with, can we get more information about the PM AI model? And I think that was the last one that I see.
Okay.
Oh, and actually there is one more. Can you share the main this is for you, but could you share the main challenges you faced during your project with Disney and the steps you took to resolve them?
Okay. Sure. I think on the AI, what we'll do is we'll send some more information about what we've envisioned for the AI tool. The PM, I assume you're talking about the PM Assistant AI tool that we're developing. I can send over more information about its capabilities when we send that deck in the recording. As far as my experience on the Disney and what sorts of problems we encountered. So I applied the risk state diagnostic we went through today to the Disney project when I got involved in it to see where the project stood in terms of the risk, the schedule, all the different things that were evaluated. I looked at the risk register. I looked at the schedule in depth, and I looked at all those things using our risk diagnostic tool. Then I also did the complexity scan, and the complexity scan helped me identify the sheer number of stakeholders. So that was a big challenge. We had so many different stakeholders. We had literally hundreds of applications. I think there were, if I recall correctly, there were about 4,000 servers that needed SOX controls, and there were several hundred servers that needed the PCI controls. And so we had lots of stakeholders. So that was the complexity scan was helpful to uncover the size of the stakeholder pool. And then structuring my project based upon that, we definitely needed a very strong organizational change management portion to the project. Um, and let me think if there's any other tools that we used. Well, the go live readiness, we had it kind of had a basic go live readiness framework that we used and built for the initial go lives, and then we replicated that for all the subsequent go lives. So it was always the same set of criteria to start with. So I'd say those are the three that we applied to the Disney tools, Disney project. Any other questions, Ray?
I think that was it. Yeah.
Okay. So as I mentioned before, we'll be distributing the slides, the recording, and we'll also send over some more information on the PM Assistant AI tool. Give us a day or two for that, and we'll get that out to everybody that's here. And then this slide is information on how to apply for your PDU credits if you do want to apply for your PDU credits. I have used this code successfully to test it out, so it should work. I apologize if you were in the past webinar and you had a challenge. We did work through that. So this one's been tested in advance, and it should work. But I do have folks at PMI that I can reach out to if there's any challenges that you have. Just let us know if you're having any challenges getting your credits. And I'll send this out. It will be part of the slide, so you'll see this instruction. The other thing I was going to mention is we'll also send you a very short, and I promise it's short, feedback survey to understand where we may be able to help you or just to get your feedback on the webinar and how we can improve these webinars going forward. So if you could take a minute to do that, that would be wonderful. And then this last slide here is I basically talking about upcoming webinars. I want the PM assistant to be an upcoming webinar. As I mentioned, we'll probably do an earned value webinar. Um, and let me just say, I really appreciate you spending time with us today with Ray and I. Our goal really is that the tools you've seen, the concepts we've discussed will give you some practical ideas you can take back to your organization and use on their projects or develop them and get that underway if you feel like there's a blind spot and a gap where you could use one of these. And then obviously, please contact Elion if you have any help you need or any discussion you want to have in how to get started. Ray and I really hope these tools and concepts will help you and that will help you tackle your projects better with greater confidence. And your participation today has, certainly made this a great session. Before we close, please drop any other last questions in the chat if you want. If you want to drop, that's fine, and we can follow up with you individually and send you an answer to your questions. So we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar, and thank you again. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much.